Hi, Anthony Smith here, COO of EMF Safe. We are the American manufacturers of the UL-listed EMF Safe Switch. Dan Everson, our CEO, is the inventor of the original EMF Kill Switch, the EMF Sleep Switch, and now in its present form, the EMF Safe Switch. This is a remote cutoff device for your home that allows you to switch off unwanted EMF, allowing you to create an EMF mitigated sleep sanctuary. We empower you to safely switch off and be in control of the EMF in your home. Welcome to the Experts Interview Series. Enjoy. It's my pleasure to invite Michael Neuert. Michael is from the EMFcenter.com. His contact information is there on the screen for you, based in Santa Rosa, California. Michael has a Bachelor's of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Wisconsin. He also has a Master's in Psychology from Sonoma State University. He has a California Electrical Contractor's License. And he's also got 30 years of experience under his belt in the EMF mitigation world, helping thousands of people. He has put together an online course, EMF Solutions for Your Health, and that information will be available as well. And what also adds to Michael's qualifications, although I wish it's one, I'm sure it's one he wished he didn't have, and that is he is also EMF sensitive. So along with his professional background and knowledge and his experience of helping other people, I think that qualifies him in a rather unique way. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Anthony. Nice to be here.
Thank you for taking your time. I know you're very busy. Michael, we are biased at EMF Safe because we make the EMF Safe switch that turns off electricity in people's homes. But we do believe that shutting off circuits is the best and the lowest cost way of mitigating EMF for people. Could you speak to that from your background?
Yeah, so first, one of the confusing things for people can be that there's several kinds of EMFs. So electric fields and magnetic fields are two types of EMFs that tend to come from building wiring. It's hard to shield those things. There's a certain amount with electricity that comes along with electricity of these two kinds of fields. So just shutting off the wires is like the best thing you can do. It's close to having no wires, not quite, but it's the simplest, most effective. Shielding is never as good as turning off the source.
Electric fields are harmful to the health. There's lots of evidence to support that. Many people are concerned about dirty electricity and radio frequency. They seem to be getting top billing these days. But could you speak to the importance of having the electric fields on the list and where they fit in as far as your idea of how important they are?
Yeah. So just to help people be clear, again, electromagnetic fields have those two parts, an electric field and a magnetic part, like the name. The magnetic field has been known as a health hazard for a long time. That was the first thing that kind of came on the map as far as magnetic fields from power lines. In that work, where Ed Leeper and Nancy Wertheimer were looking at what could be doing this, they singled out magnetic fields, and in the process, they actually sort of ignored electric fields, this other half of it. But it turns out the electric fields are very much interactive with the body, put voltages on your skin. People sense it. It's the EMF you can sense the most. So in my experience over the years, it's the EMF that people really react to the most also, most sort of like actively. And so it's interesting, but dirty electricity basically has to do with on the wires, right? And electrical wires in the wall, you have the signal that's in there with the electricity, with the power to it, is distorted. But so what? I mean, it kind of hurts a few electrical things maybe, but dirty electricity in the wall isn't that big of a deal. When you take a dirty electricity meter, I don't even have one here in case people don't know what that is, but you take a meter You plug it into the wall and you're finding out, oh, I have dirty electricity. But it's interesting, this is only telling you what's going on in the wall. It's not telling you what the field is that comes out from the wall. And because what happens, those wires in the wall, they make an electric field. The electric field comes out, gets to your skin, you have this voltage. So dirty electricity is important, but in and of itself, it's a little bit of it can lead you in sort of like the wrong directions. You really care how much is that field getting to you. And then if you get that field, you do care about dirty electricity, because if over there at the electrical wires, it's distorted with this DE signal, it means that the field you're getting is also distorted similarly. So electric fields, even if they're clean, are already sort of problematic for people, right? So even you have kind of no dirty electricity, but the field is still coming. You have this electric field, and it bothers people. But when you have this dirty electricity on the wires, and then it gets a long broadcast, you feel that even more. So dirty electricity is an issue, but it's really combined with the electric field issue. And for most people, the electric field issue is greater. And so something like a shutoff switch, you not only cut off, there's no dirty electricity because there's no voltage on the wires, but you have no field at all coming out of it. So I find that people feel much better when you turn off a circuit than when you just plug in filters, say, to try to get the dirty electricity down, because that doesn't stop the field.
Right.
And it's a little confusing, but the reason that, and radio frequencies are really important too, all that wireless stuff, another kind of EMF. So, and the reason that dirty electricity affects people, I believe, is because now that electric field you're getting, because of the dirty electricity, the electric field has a little bit of like radio frequencies on it also. So you have kind of a messier field, right?
Right.
So people who are sensitive to radio frequencies, just like a Wi-Fi or cell phone or something, they tend to be sensitive to dirty electricity, but not the DE in the wires, the electric field that actually gets to them that has this distorted signal.
I have a question about that, because it's my understanding that all EMF is cumulative. So it's not just all the different types of EMF that accumulate at the same time, but it's cumulative over time as well. So the volume of each of these things would contribute to the overall load that somebody's experiencing. And we use on our website the analogy of the straw that breaks the camel's back. Yes. And I think for many people, the straw that breaks their camel's back is the dirty electricity or the smart meter or the cell phone tower in the neighborhood.
Yes.
But our argument is, if you can take 80% of the load off the camel by mitigating the EMF in your home, especially at night when you're more sensitive, then maybe that straw that was breaking your back, now that you've unloaded the camel, maybe it's not going to affect you nearly as much as it did before. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I couldn't agree with that more. One of the way back when even cell towers were sort of starting, right? There was a group in this one town where a bunch of activists got together and they were fighting the cell towers coming in. And the reason people do that is because they feel it, even though some scientist says, oh, no, that can't affect your health. These are people that know, I feel it, I'm not feeling good. So they have this lived experience of like reacting to radio frequency things. This is a particular, so there are probably like 10 people. Since I was in that town, I had traveled quite a bit. They had me go to their houses and check their houses, right, to see what was going on in their house. And it turned out like 80–90% of those people had unusually high exposures to electric fields where they slept. And so I found that, and that was, 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, I find that over and over again, the people who, like you say, the straw has broken their back, those people, it's very often they've been sleeping in high electric fields for years. And it's obvious to me that it's that time frame accumulating that experience that at some point their body snaps, and now they're sensitive to the smart meter or the Wi-Fi router the neighbor gets, which normally they wouldn't have been if they hadn't been in that field for 20 years.
Yeah, so I think one of the best things anybody can do obviously most of the time that we spend it with people who are already sensitive, but maybe one of the best ways of not becoming sensitive in the first place would be to reduce the amount of EMF that you're exposed to on a daily basis. And as hard as it is during the day, it's almost impossible when you're out. But at home, you've got things on during the day, we're living life, we're doing things. But at night, when we really don't need that much on, that is the easiest time to do that. Actually leads me to the next question of, obviously nobody really knows what they've got going on. You went to these people's homes and you measured to find out. Could you speak to the whole measuring issue about the different types of measurements and the type of or the format, the methodology that you prefer with your 30 years of experience?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so here we're talking about what's called the ELF, extremely low frequency, from building wiring, electrical wiring. It does come from power lines, but by the time it gets from the power line inside your house, it's usually quite reduced in comparison to what's coming from your wiring. In fact, that's one of the reasons why in the initial studies, when they were looking at what's causing cancer in these kids, they ruled out electric fields because the power lines for electric fields were not being detected in the house, but they weren't doing any measurement of the electric fields from the wiring. So from your wiring, you have electric fields. It's a field, it puts voltages on your skin. So I recommend using what's called a body voltage meter, which basically just, so basically it's an electrician's voltmeter. Any electrician would have some kind of voltmeter. And you have you have a probe you hold in your hand. So it's actually, what's the voltage on your body? But to know what to compare that to, you have another long wire that comes out of the meter, goes out the door, you have it to a stake in the earth. The earth is the closest we have to 0 volts. And so with the body voltmeter, you find out what's the voltage on you with respect to the earth. Because if you were out in nature, you'd be 0. Before the invention of electricity, you'd be 0. So I recommend a body voltmeter with this. And a simple way to test with a body voltmeter is you have a ground wire that instead goes into an outlet ground. But those are pretty dirty and you can have really bad results depending on the grounding system. So I always recommend you get the type that has a long earth rod kind of wire. And there's several companies, I believe your company carries a body voltmeter, correct?
We do. I mean,
yes.
We work very closely with the building biology community and EMF consultants as our affiliates, but sometimes people either don't have somebody in their area that they can call upon, maybe they don't have the funds. So
yes,
we do offer a body voltage meter because we found it is the most least expensive way. I mean, it's $150 versus $2,000 for some of the meters that professionals use, and which obviously is a professional, it's appropriate for them to have that, but not practical for the somebody just wants to test the voltage in their own home. And again, something I share with people regularly is, it really doesn't matter what the voltage is in the corner of the room or downstairs.
right.
What matters is lie in your bed. Your body is inducing a field. You are the antenna,
yes.
and that meter tells you exactly how much voltage you have in that place, which is the only place that matters while you're sleeping.
That's right.
And so then you turn off the breakers, take a reading, go through the breakers to find out which the guilty ones are for you in that place, and then you know which ones to turn off and solve the problem. The in relation to measuring, we've already mentioned dirty electricity. Could you speak to the difference between, or the advantage of turning off the field as opposed to some of the other methodologies that are being offered with filters and the shielding, this paint, there's all kinds of things. Again, we're biased. We make the safe switch to turn off the circuits. Speak to the difference between filtering, again, dirty electricity, because so many people are interested in it these days, versus turning off the circuit.
Yeah. So for dirty electricity, my favorite way of dealing with it, I will often measure it because I want to see how bad it is. Because I know the higher the measurement of the dirty electricity, again, on the wiring, that I know that the dirtier this field that's coming to me is. But if I have 0 field coming to me, I don't care if it's dirty over at the wires, right?
Right.
And if I have a huge field coming to me, like is very strong. Like I've seen people at 10, 20, 30 volts on their skin. I mean, enough to run low voltage lighting.
Right.
then that's like, I don't even care if there's very little dirty electricity. That little bit is a lot. So I'm really trying to reduce the field. So I like to shut off the circuits, number one.
Mhm.
Number two, I like to do shielded wiring where you have here in the US, we call it MC cable. It's an armored cable, and that contains the electric field and a lot of the dirty electricity.
Right.
There's the typical way you deal with dirty electricity is like with the filter, like here's a Stetzer filter, plugs into the wall.
Mhm.
It doesn't reduce the fields that come out of the wirings. So you still have an electric field. But when you do this, if you do it right, that voltage sine wave, that field is now a little bit cleaner, a little more sine wave. That's right.
But you still have, by using those filters, and oftentimes you need 20 in your house or something like that. But you've still got the electric field, which is still
Yes.
causing 60 hertz, which is still bioreactive and causing harm
That's
to
right.
the body. So it solves the dirty electricity problem, but it doesn't solve the electric field problem.
Yeah, and actually, it even the best filtering doesn't do a very good job of sort of solving the dirty electricity problem. Also, it's very difficult. There's cases where you put in the filters and it makes the dirty electricity worse. For instance, it's a very kind of it's with the electronics of the whole system, the capacitance and the inductance of different things all coming together. But basically, the biggest problem with the filters for me is that in the process of doing this filtering of the electric voltage, this capacitor does that by actually, it takes more electrons, gives more electrons back to smooth out the electric voltage. There's currents that go back and forth from this to the wiring system. And those currents create magnetic fields. So in the best case, when you use filters, you create a magnetic field around the filter. But in the worst case, you actually have now dirty magnetic fields through your whole wiring system. And so I find that about half of the people, I would say when you're with sensitive people, if they plug in like these filters, maybe a third of the time they'll say, I feel better. And maybe a third of the time they'll say, I can't tell any difference. But at least a third of the time they'll say, I feel worse. The filters, even I know the dirty electricity number's gone down. The thing with the dirty electricity test meters is that this is only testing the dirty electricity, that's the voltage. It's not testing the dirty magnetic fields. So it's kind of like you test one thing with the meter, you have a fix which fixes what the meter sees, but you create something that you need a different meter to detect. So
right. So that is if you're only interested in dirty electricity, that is addressing that problem.
yes.
It's leaving the electric field in place, which is still there.
Yes.
And we've run into this ourselves going into people's homes. We were in this one house, and this lady had horrendous magnetic fields. It was bizarre.
Yeah.
And we were talking and discussing various things that had happened, and it just came up in the conversation that she had a number of plug-in filters, which we couldn't see because they're all hidden behind furniture and sofas and in obscure places. So we unplugged those, and all of a sudden the magnetic fields largely disappeared. And just an interesting situation. There is a necessity, and it's very important to address all of these issues and to have a holistic approach. We know that for some people, dirty electricity is a health issue. They are sensitive to that. Could you speak to the different methodologies in regards to how they apply from a health point of view versus just turning everything off?
So when you do dirty electricity filtering, you're cleaning up the electric fields, but you have doing a trade-off of making magnetic fields worse. How worse depends on the house. Like I've done that too. I've been to houses where I have to unplug your filters to even see what the wiring would do without them, because the wiring has issues and it magnifies it. So, I find with some people who are sensitive have more of an issue with the magnetic fields, right? And so when you put in these filters, it drives them crazy because that's what they're sensitive to is now being made worse. Some people, the magnetic field doesn't bother them that much, but they're much more sensitive to electric fields. So then, oh yeah, you plug in these and that kind of helps them a little bit because the electric field is a little cleaner. But I don't think I've ever had something happen, a situation where people actually, how do you say it? If this helps, putting in a filter, turning off that circuit helps more.
Okay.
You know, like what I find is people say, well, that helped a little bit. But when but I've never had, I don't think I've had a client in 30 years where if you put in filters, that fixed everything for me. Now I don't have my symptoms. Now I feel good. It's always, well, maybe a little bit, but I have had people just, it's miracles, basically when we get rid of the electric fields in the house.
Right. Could you speak to daytime mitigation versus nighttime? Obviously, both are important.
Yes.
But the importance of what we call setting up an EMF mitigated sleep sanctuary at night. And we argue because at night, our bodies are trying to heal and detox, and they're 10 times more sensitive to EMF. We're actually, our bodies are used to EMF during the day. I mean, the big ball up in the sky is a massive EMF producer. Natural EMF, of course, not man-made EMF, but we're not designed to be subjected to any EMFs at all, natural or man-made, at night, because obviously historically, you know, the sun sets. And so, yeah, speak to the daytime issue.
So first, almost everybody in our field, it's obvious nighttime is the most important time to reduce the fields of all sorts. Partly because even your immune system, you're going into parasympathetic mode. A lot of your immune system's turning on. And a lot of the effects of these EMFs are sort of with turning off immune functions. So daytime is important too. For mitigating, you know, turning off circuits is there's a lot of people I work with where we turn off circuits during the day also. And that's often where we just turn off the breaker and they leave it off, except for like when company comes. Because for a lot of people, there's circuits they don't need. It depends on the house and what's on your breakers and things. So we do try to reduce the daytime. So for daytime purposes, where you can turn off the circuits, that is sometimes where we do shielding, like a shielded paint or other things. You know, a very common thing to do with people who really want to get their fields low during the day also is we actually turn off the circuits that are nighttime we do for the night. We turn off in the day too, turn off a lot more circuits. And then, you know how in most houses, there's actually a lot more electrical outlets, lights and everything than you really need. So sometimes this is what I used to do as an electrician a lot, was turn off a lot of things in the house and then do a shielded circuit with one plug for that bedroom, one plug for that bathroom, you know, sort of a more minimum amount of electricity that was live and keep other things off. So that they could either have a switch for the rest of the house and mostly being off. Yeah, everybody does it a little different. And some people do have a switch where they, you know, like there's one client I'm working with right now, she does want to have certain parts of her house on when she needs it. But then actually most of the day she doesn't need it. You know, I'm not going to watch the TV most of the day. I'm not going to. So actually, let's turn this off most of the day, but I want to switch so that I can watch TV and work at my computer for 2 hours in the afternoon, but then I want that electricity off again. So for some people, it's not just nighttime, it's also some of the circuits during the day.
Yeah, we do kind of propose that as there's two approaches. One is the holistic approach where basically you turn the house off and then you only turn on the room that you need on at the time you need to be on there. You turn on the kitchen when you need to be in the kitchen, cook a meal, then turn it off. And we do offer an EMF safe switch. You know, we have 4 zones so that you can have, you know, one for the kids' bedroom, one for the parents' bedroom, maybe another for the home office or the entertainment room. Whereas, you know, a lot of televisions, stereo systems, they're all, you know, smart, so smart, not so smart, I call them these days. So, you know, you put the kids to bed with one zone, mom and dad go to bed with the second zone, you keep the Wi-Fi for those people that still have Wi-Fi. So you can turn that on and off. You know, if somebody needs to kind of check something in the middle of the night, they can just hit that one button. They're only turning on the circuit with the Wi-Fi on it. Yeah. And we've now, because of COVID and so many people working from home, we suggest that they include the home office. And actually, while they're working in the home office, have the wires, like in the bedroom, have all the wires that are affecting putting a field out into that space, turn those off, have a shielded cord coming in from the outside to plug in the computer and the things that you need, of course, all of which should be as physically far away from you as possible. But we found that by doing that, you can reduce somebody's electric field body voltage reading from, I don't know, 3,000-4,000 millivolts down to below 1,000, which we say, if you can be below 1,000 during the day, below 100 at night, you're definitely heading in the right direction and giving your immune system a chance to recoup and recover. So rather than getting worse and worse every day with exposure, your body has a chance to recoup and recover. As an EMF sensitive person, what have you found to be the most effective? Obviously you are suffering from EMF, the consequences or the side effects, the health issues maybe with EMF. What were the things that really made the biggest difference for you in dealing with that issue?
Yes. So first, I'm not highly sensitive like some people are, or I wouldn't be able to go into people's homes. So I have, for me personally, it's not so much. Well, as I get older, I can feel pretty bad around the EMFs too. For me, I've actually noticed that I feel so much better without them. It's almost like not so much that I feel worse when they're around. I mean, I even became aware of this issue when I was when I think it was 25 and in college, getting my graduate degree, and all the power went off for the town, and I just felt great while everybody else was complaining, And so I found that I really I function better and I feel better. My psyche, everything about my psyche's better when I'm not in strong fields. So a lot of my motivation is I like to feel better. So for me, the electric fields are huge. So of course I have a house here which I rewired so it's low fields. But for me, even though I can't measure the body voltage like in our bedroom, and that's all, I still have a switch where I turn off the wiring in that half of the bedroom, because even though my meter says it's very low, my body detects a little bit something, and I feel better just having it off.
Sure.
So that's my biggest thing.
I noticed the giraffes on the wall behind you, and as people can see, the elephant in the room behind me, because we say that the E of EMF is the elephant in the room, that is the electric fields. And going back to the cumulative issue, we estimate that if people are 10 times more sensitive at night, 1 hour at night is equivalent to 10 hours during the day. So 8 hours at night would be 80 daytime hours. And then, of course, you've got the other 16 hours in the day, which gives you a 96-hour day as far as the impact of EMF on our bodies. And 80 of those hours are at night. So by turning off the EMF at night, you've actually, from the negative effect of EMF on our bodies and our immune system, by turning off the EMF at night for 8 hours, you've actually reduced your daily EMF exposure by 80%, which kind of shocks people when they think about that. And back to the camel analogy, when you take 80% of the load off the camel, that straw that was going to break its back is probably not quite. It's not that it's not important, and it needs to be considered.
Yes.
I mean, avoid cell towers and stores that have high EMF, and we have the pen to detect that stuff. So appreciate it, Michael. Thank you for your time. Other things, questions that your customers, what's the kind of the number one question that you get asked, doing what you do? What comes up the most for people that might help somebody listening to this interview?
Well, what actually mentioned something is when people turn off the power, there's an electrical bill savings also, electricity savings that can be amazing. Just wanted to mention that because it's sometimes surprising for people who have their power off a lot, especially during the day. Totally blows their mind that like their electric bill might go in half or something. All these phantom electrical loads go off.
It is amazing these days how many televisions, stereo systems, all of these devices that we have plugged in, when we're not using them, they're turned off. We think they're not, we would assume that they're not using electricity, but it is quite amazing how accumulative all of those trickle feeds
Yes.
can be. And yeah,
Yes.
we've never approached the cost saving, the energy saving aspect of it, but it is there, and it is real. And also that even though those devices are plugged in, you know, if you have a smart fridge or a smart toaster or, you know, the smart
Yes.
TV, they're all broadcasting Wi-Fi and Bluetooth all the time. So by turning off that circuit, including that circuit in your, you know, you may not, when you turn off that circuit, when you're measuring in the bedroom, it may not have any effect on the body voltage in the bed. But then when you measure radio frequency, by turning off that circuit at night as well, to reduce, you know, electric fields, magnetic fields, dirty electricity, and radio frequency in your home, that's a significant improvement. And we found that people, we had actually one of the best testimonies that we've had over the years is a family that had an autistic child, and the child was 5 years old, and they installed an EMF safe switch. So now all the electricity is being turned off at night, and within 1 week, that 5-year-old child started to speak. And so, you know,
yes, that's,
you know, things like that, and just to support that during the California fires and the outages that they had, where they were turning off, you know, towns for a week at a time. There was just a tremendous positive feedback from people with autistic children, or that suddenly they found that their condition improved significantly and dramatically by not having that that EMF exposure 24/7. It was enough to get them to you know, come back and begin to heal and recover. So things like that are just, you know, and I'm sure you have lots of testimonies yourself that just make this work, knowing that you're helping people in a very, very concrete, a very real way. And we'd like to thank you for your service to the EMF community. You've contributed greatly to it, both by going out and servicing all of those customers that you did, but also your teaching, your training. When I was getting into this, some of your videos were very, very helpful to me when I was first getting started in the EMF world. So thank you, Michael, for all that you have contributed to the EMF community. And as more and more people, unfortunately, become sensitive, I know your contribution to them finding a solution more quickly will be greatly significant. And once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony. Pleasure.